decided that whatever we did was going to be in the papers.
Hey there, I'm Niels Mahoney, communications coach, and we're going to take a look at John Lennon. It's an interview with Tom Snyder from American television in 1975. We'll watch the whole interview.
You said earlier that it became boring to stay with that group. Why is what you're doing now not boring when that was?
Because I can change musicians whenever I like. And it tends to get into a format, you know. Because we were together much longer than the public knew us. You know, it wasn't just from '64. I was 24 in '64, and I've been playing with Paul since I was 15. And he's very nice. and George about a year later or something. So it's a long time we spent together in all the most extraordinary circumstances.
First impressions, very relaxed, very confident, very self-assured, still a bit of the Joker. We did an earlier video of him, I think it was in 1964, I'm thinking. If you want to look back, it's in the earlier videos here on the channel. It's black and white, he's 20-something, he's younger, he's smart arsing around, he's kind of wisecracking. This is a more serious John, he's more mature obviously. Quite relaxed in the environment. It's a very calm studio. Tom Snyder made that very welcoming. This is the Tomorrow Show, is that what this is called? Oh, I believe so. And let's keep going.
From, you know, lousy rooms to great rooms. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't just the public just think, oh, you were only together 5 years, we've only got 5 million records, you know. But we were together a long, long time, and we just became stale musically.
But how are you not stale musically now, aside from changing
because
musicians?
I'm interacting with different musicians. To me, they're musicians. They're not just, you know, it's not like, to people, they're all stars, right? It's like having Elton John and Elvis and a few people playing, you know. To me, it isn't. It's just musicians, and to them, it's the same. So if you play with the same person all the time, you get into a rut. Even if you played tennis with the same person.
It's boring.
It comes to a time when you know every move, and you have to find somebody else to play with.
He's done that thing again that a lot of artists do. We've noticed this over the videos we've watched. When they're talking about their craft and what they do, the hands go. Watch the hands. The hands start flying around. They love to talk. They get so excited about what they do and the craft and the skill involved that they get the hands start jumping up and down. You can watch that. He's very relaxed at the minute. He's like this, but ask him what he does. Watch those hands go.
As you listen to music today, I don't know if you listen to the radio a lot or if you listen mostly to records, but what are things that you see that you think are good or bad?
Well, that's pretty general. I like the disco music that's out now, which is great music. I like the thing that happened in Jamaica called reggae. There's a music in Jamaica called reggae, which has been around for years under the disguise of ska, blue beat, etc., etc., but it finally formed itself into reggae. And that's about the really newest thing that's happened in music in the last 5 years or 6 years.
Do you think anything new happens to music, or is it a continual series of cycles, and that maybe 100,000 years ago somebody had the same kind of beat or the same kind of whatever it is that makes it different, and that maybe the whole thing is just going in cycles, or are we in fact discovering things all the time?
I think there's something to the cycle thing, but I think if you apply the cycle idea to it, that's a cycle for everything, not just music, you know. Mm-hmm. But it's snowballing either just because of electricity or because of all the garbage everybody picks up, you know, because we keep inventing things, right?
Didn't expect him to like disco, did you? Didn't see that one coming. What I liked about this interview is Tom Snyder's questions are very pointed and very direct and very clear, and John Lennon's answers are the same. They're two very smart individuals having a conversation, and there's no sensationalism. There's no who's dating who. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Gossip. It's a mature conversation about his craft and about his career. And Tom Snyder, I remember reading about Tom Snyder, and he wasn't the most loved interviewer. I think he's great here. This is a good interview.
So it does change, and it has cycles in a way, you know. Like I think the whole whatever it is, the universe is a series of cycles. But the music has to change because they keep inventing new things. Like, you know, films change, it's now video, so in that way it's different.
But don't you know that in about 1988 there's going to be a group come out that is going to pick right back to the sound that you guys had in the since you're 15 years old, and all kinds of critics and all kinds of writers are going to say, wow, look at this, we've got this whole new sound that's reminiscent of the Beatles back in the 60s?
Well, they'll probably be playing Grutsch blobs and Zachtungas, right? You know, they'll have new instruments. And although rock and roll was brand new when it came out and excited everybody, it was sort of, it had roots in blues and jazz. So in that way, they would have their roots in the 60s, 70s, and possibly further back.
He's right about, yeah, they did do the synth music, synthesizer, electronic music started coming in, didn't the Kraftwerk were around, even during this interview, Kraftwerk were around with Autobahn and albums like that. But Tom Snyder's right, bands came along, it sounded like the Beatles, Oasis, that whole Manchester scene from Manchester in the 90s, Sowing the Seeds of Love, Tears for Fears, it's Beatles. He's right about that.
But you can't say that rock and roll is like the 20s music, although if you look for it, you can find out where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find out where Beatles music came from, or any music came from. It's just like it has its history.
Before we get into your immigration status, and we'll bring Mr. Wilds out at that time.
Hooray!
Hooray! And that is a controversy for you and for
Yeah.
people who would want you to stay in this country. You've been involved in some other mini controversies, like the time that you were on the cover of the album without any clothes on, and like the time
Yes.
that you and Yoko had everybody or invited people to come into the bedroom while you were there.
We held a bed in for peace, yeah.
A bed in for peace, exactly. Why do you do those things? And I don't ask you that because I want to engender some flip response from you, but what does that gain for you as John Lennon, or what does it gain for the cause of peace in the case of the bed-in for you to do something like that?
Yoko and I, when we got together, decided that whatever we did was going to be in the papers, you know, whether it's Richard or Liz or so-and-so gets married or whatever people like us do is going to be in the papers. So we decided to utilize the space we would occupy anyway by getting married with a commercial for peace and also a theatrical event. And the theatrical event we came up with, which utilized the least energy with the maximum effect, was to work from bed. And what we virtually had was a 7-day press conference in bed.
Do you notice the way when you're watching this, you get reeled in to the conversation? Do you notice the way you listen to the words and you take note of what he's saying and you want to hear more? This is communication at its best, right? When you can get someone else to pay attention and listen to what you're saying, then you're communicating well. It doesn't matter what your style is. It doesn't matter how you jump up and down or sit still or wink or don't wink or whatever. It doesn't matter if you have a beard or a hat on, whatever. If you can get the other person to listen and look forward to and anticipate your words, then you're communicating well. And that's what both of these men are doing here.
Where the press fought, the first day they fought at the door to get in, thinking there was something, you know, sexy going on. And then they
Licentious.
found, that was the word I was looking for. And they found two people talking about peace, you know. And reporters always have 5 minutes with you, or 10 minutes with you. We let them ask anything for as long as they wanted for 7 days. And all the time we just kept plugging peace. And the story that came out was John and Yoko do bed in for peace. And we were just promoting peace, like you promote any product. You know, they promote war, join the Marines, join this. We were promoting peace. The Naked album cover was less general than that, meaning we didn't have. That was one of the first things we did. We thought, you know, we felt like two virgins. That's what the album was called, because we were in love, just met, and we were trying to make something. And we thought, to show everything. People are always looking at people like me, trying to see some secret, or what do they do? What do they do? You know, do they go to the bathroom? Do they eat?
Do you?
I do, quite a lot. You know, and we just said here, you know, and that was in 1968, and all hell broke loose. But now they're jumping around naked all over the place, right?
Yes, they are, as a matter of fact.
Right.
That's a great line by Tom Snyder, isn't it? I go to the bathroom. Do you? I do, quite a lot. I love that.
So we were just sort of ahead of our time.
What difficulties are there for people who are in the public eye, who know, as you and Yoko did, that whatever you do, it's going to be picked up in the press, and you really can't go out and, I suppose, have a quiet dinner or go to the park or go to a movie or something like that? What difficulties are there in your life when there's such adulation for you and such curiosity about what you do all the time?
Well, that's cool, because that's part, I reckon that's part of the
What, part of the
price,
territory?
You know? Yeah. But, you see, having gone through the Beatlemania thing, nowadays it's nothing like that. I mean, I can walk down the street and somebody will say, "Oh, hi, John," and they usually say, "How's your immigration?" You know, if it's in New York, right? And they don't hassle me. I might sign one autograph, two autographs, you know? And I don't get hassled. And I went through that period where I actually couldn't go anywhere. And so now it's like heaven. I can go and eat. We go and eat. We go to the movies. We go wherever we want. If there's an announcement, like there's an opening and everybody's going to be there, you get a lot of noise and cameras and flashbulbs. But if we just decide to go to dinner, it's cool, you know?
You're thinking what I'm thinking here, aren't you? Walking around the streets of New York 5 years later. It's kind of sad. It's very sad.
We're probably less recognizable than you now.
Oh, I
every
doubt
night.
that. I doubt that.
You're on every night. You kidding?
But it doesn't make any difference, because when you were on, you had 35, 40, 50 million people. I'll never forget the time that you came to Los Angeles. I was working there for Channel 5, and you were giving a concert at, I don't remember where it was. Hollywood Bowl, is that right? Thank you. And there were the lines for the tickets, and there was all the attendant publicity prior to the appearance and everything else. And one of our reporters went out and covered all this, and he came back and he said, "It's going to be wild out there tonight." And I, because I'm not very smart, went on the air and I said, "Well, if you'd like to know where the Beatles are, call this guy, and his home number is." And I mean, his phone didn't stop ringing for 4 days. It was just an obscenity. And I wish that if he's watching, I'm sorry I did that. And so your viewability or your visibility is so tremendously high, or at least was then, and I just wondered if it had kind of slopped over into your career now.
No, I mean, I can get around now, you know. I can get. I'm glad too. I don't miss it. I'm glad it happened, but I don't miss it.
Yeah,
like
in spite of the boredom, in spite of the fact that maybe there were little dissensions, those were good times for you.
Oh,
huh?
yeah. I mean, the boredom was in the music. I mean, that came after all the Beatlemania.
Did you save your money?
What we could get our hands on, yeah.
What do you mean, what you could get your hands on?
Well, a lot of it got siphoned off before we even got near it, you know. I mean, we didn't know anything about business or anything like that, you know. And there's a lot of money. There's a lot of millionaires around this world, so, yeah. But that's part of the action, too.
Okay. Let me pause here for these announcements. We'll continue with John Lennon on tomorrow in 2 minutes and 5 seconds, and I trust you'll stay tuned. Thank you.
Right, that's all we have on this particular video. It's interesting to watch them. It's sad as well to watch them. And again, there's two heavyweights of what they do. John Lennon, obviously John Lennon. Tom Snyder, really good interview style. You don't see that style anymore on television. We get it with podcasts now for sure, but not on television. It's just intelligent, incisive questioning, conversational. It just sounds like two people having a conversation, a very interesting conversation that you want to listen to, that you want to find out more about them. And Tom Snyder lets you into him as well a little bit. He's revealing his life. Even though he's got the announcer voice and he's the interviewer, he's still a human being, and he's telling us stuff. And I always love when they break that. They're not really breaking the fourth wall, but when he looks across, when they was trying to think of where the gig was, and somebody said the Hollywood Bowl, and he goes, "Oh yeah, okay, thank you." I love that because it gives the impression that there's an event happening and there are more people around. It's just a nice thing. Anyway, John Lennon, very comfortable, very calm, very relaxed, very assured, and he almost seemed happy in himself. He was moving to New York and he was quite pleased with how his life was going. He was exploring artistically who he is and what he does, and he's freshening things up, and he looked like he was in a good place there. I'm Niles Mahoney, Communications Coach. Thanks for watching. That's the subscribe button, so is that one, and I'll see you around for the next video. Cheers for now.